All right, so everyone just missed for the recording. The crowd did go wild for this training. Just want that on the record. I'm excited today to talk about kind of the beginning of email retention. We recently at the City Council approved a new retention schedule, and that allows for our emails to be maintained for 2 years. That's been our retention schedule, but we're going to start implementing that. So Bruce is here, who's going to go over what a record is. It's going to go over a lot of training around emails and records and non-records. But for now, what I would like to discuss is kind of a little bit about the why. We're going to start automatically deleting emails effective January 1st of 2027. So that means they'll just get automatically deleted. A lot of the emails that we have in our emails are not records, but some of them are records. They're final decisions, they're determinations. There might be related to a project that we need to keep them and store them per their own records retention schedule and that record schedule. So we'll go into that. Bruce is going to give a really wonderful training on that in a minute. I also wanted to just briefly talk about some emails versus our teams and the retention for that based on the newly adopted retention schedule. So our emails will automatically be deleted after 2 years, as I just mentioned. All Teams chats are going to be automatically deleted after 6 months per the retention schedule. And then our Teams channel conversations will be automatically deleted after 2 years. So we're going to kind of go into specifically focusing on emails and determining what is just a regular email that can be deleted in 2 years. And again, what constitute that email as a record and how we need to manage that and organize our emails going forward. I just want to point out there's a few reasons why. It's not just because we have this retention schedule and it's a policy decision by the City Council, but also we have public records requests. And if we don't have deletion of those emails, we're going through maybe 8 years of emails whenever we get an email Public Records Act request. So that'll help reduce the burden in our office, but also, as city employees leave the organization and their emails get deleted, if they're not properly storing those records, they go with them. And so we want to try to think about your email. Your email really shouldn't be your electronic records management system. That's not what Outlook is. So we have an electronic document management system. We're going to get into that. But for now, I want to introduce Bruce Meyer of Records Control Systems. He's incredible. I've worked with him in our office with records management, but there's really no one who makes records more fun and who loves records more than me, except for Bruce. So no one can see you on camera, but the wind was blowing through his hair on that introduction, and I'll now pass it on to Bruce.
Left of my hair. I always say so people can remember my name, Bruce, like Willis, but with more hair. You know? Yes, so talking about records retention, and speaking of something that that Lindsay just mentioned, a client of mine, City of Vallejo, recently got a request for emails. And this is a good example why we want to get rid of emails and as much as we can and make records out of what we know we need to keep. They got a request for emails going back, I forget how many years, but it turned out to be about 40,000 emails that they had to review. There was a point, and redact if it had something that was confidential in it. There was a point where they're just like, forget it. We're giving them everything, including the ads and the miscellaneous stuff. And hey, Safeway's having a sale, you know? They gave them everything. Did they have to? No, not really, because if they had implemented a decent records management system for emails, they wouldn't have all that around. So that's really the point, is to streamline, make it easier not only for you to provide information if there's a public records request, but also to reduce what we have in the system to what we only need to keep and what might be in current state transitory. And I'll touch on some of these subjects too. In fact, that's the first few slides I'm going to talk about are terms that we are using as part of the program. There we go. Okay, so what's a record? It's any writing containing information related to the conduct of the city's business. Prepared, owned, stored, used, archived throughout by individuals and by the city as a whole, regardless of physical format. And that's something I'll, in particular, in the next session, if anyone's staying for that one, I will say that a lot. because it doesn't matter. When I talk about retention schedules to most people, they look at me like, oh, yeah, it's just for the paper, right? I just sell everything over here electronically. It doesn't matter. You still have to produce that if you're requested, and it's something that you must produce as part of a public records request. So we're talking all levels of information. Yes, what we're focusing on right now is is emails in particular. Office of Record. More often than not, people are like, oh, I've got this document. This is mine. I'm going to hold on to this forever. This is my document. And it might have come from another department. Prime example is invoices. Everyone gets invoices, right? You get your invoice. Yep, Bruce did his job. Forward it on to, thank you, finance interaction. I love it. Bring it on. Finance is the office of record of those documents. So when it comes to emails, it's kind of the same thing too. If you're CCing an email on someone, if you're blind CCing an email on someone, whatever they're receiving from you is most likely a duplicate of what you're maintaining because you are the creator of that document. Now, in some cases, you might be creating a document, an email, forwarding it on to someone else to continue the process. You can relinquish your responsibility for that email because now it belongs to another person who becomes the office of record of that information. Does that make sense? Kinda? Good? All right. So you could be the final resting point. You could be a producer that puts it on to someone else. Ideally, it's the responsible department who maintains those documents. You're not going to go to finance for a public for a personnel file, right? You're not going to go to human resources for a capital improvement project. So think about logically who would be responsible for that information. It's no different with an email. It relates to a project, it relates to a subject that might be yours, it might be someone else's. So you are you have to determine whether you are the email thread owner. Transitory records. I guarantee you that a majority of the information that you have in emails are transitory in nature. They're used for a short period of time to create an official record. So it's that thread that's been going on for the past 2 years about this project, and no one's actually making their mind up about what to do about it. And finally, someone says, this is what we're going to do. Great, cool. The thread's done. That decision has been made. That is now the official record. Everything prior to that can be disposed of. And you don't have to go through the formal process of destruction when it comes to transitory information. It's stuff that's used for a short period of time. It's memos. It's notes that you're creating, even as part of my presentation here. If you're writing, because I see you all are writing down a lot of information. But that's all transitory in nature. You're using it to create a final document. Now, when it comes to emails, it's up to you to make that decision because it can be very subjective, what you consider a final version. I prefer it to be that final thread that the decision was made on for the project or the subject. I'll get into that a little bit further on how you can actually determine that in some of the previous or the future slides. Duplicates and copies. Like I said earlier, you're CCing it to someone, you're blind copying it to someone, that person has the duplicate of that information. Now, realistically, the intended use for duplicate information is immediate use. It might be, again, to create an official record. But you're not the office of record if you're maintaining that duplicate copy. Under no circumstances should we be keeping duplicates longer than the retention life of the official record. So if you have questions about it, consult the records retention schedules, and you can just dispose of it. But you don't want to keep that longer than the retention life of the official record. Say again? Question? Oh, yes. I'm staring at a screen down here. Oh, the other microphone.
Thank you, Lindsay. So, Bruce, as you know, I'm one of the city's attorneys.
Yes.
And One question I have is, so for the city attorney's office, I think our retention schedule is 2 years for advice.
Mhm.
And so, great, we'll be on top of deleting it. But sometimes a department may hold on to that advice for whatever reason. We've provided a checklist, or it's a good reference material for
Mhm.
them. They could end up keeping that advice longer than the city attorney's office.
Mhm.
So, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, and that's where it can be, that's where you get into kind of the gray area, because you may have a document that you received. And another prime example are invoices related to grants. You receive an invoice for the grant that will also be paid for by finance, and finance has a retention period of 4 years after audit for invoices, for all invoices. The thing is that grants get audited, specifically federal grants, and you need to have copies of those invoices as part of your grant administration files. So in some ways, it becomes part of a different record series type of record. In your case, yeah, you've just given the advice. It's great, cool. 2 years later, gone. The individual who receives that might say, well, this is the reason why we made this decision. And this is a significantly supporting document to that decision. So in some ways, it becomes a different type of record. It's part of the project now, or the subject, as opposed to all the things that you have for everyone in the city. Does that make sense? And what do you think about that?
Andrea is so good with that.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Okay. So what's not a record? Brochures, booklets, catalogs, magazines, signs and symbols, reference materials, pamphlets, and so on that you receive from, your professional organization. Hey, we're having a meeting next week. Cool, great. I'm busy. It's a non-record to the city. It doesn't. Might relate to something that you do, which is fine, but it doesn't relate to city business, because a professional association is your deal. City doesn't really care about that. They'd like that you're in one because you're keeping up with the current technologies and things, but it's not a city record. Did we leave this in? Yeah, that's what I thought. Was it our mistake? Shh, don't tell anyone. Microphone on. Responsibilities. Everyone has responsibilities when it comes to the records management program. Some have more responsibilities than others. Lindsay, she probably has the most responsibility because she is the overall manager. She's not only the records manager for the city, but the overall manager for the records management program in the city, which is ramping up even further now between Laserfiche, some of the other projects that I'm working on with the city too. We're constantly improving the system. So she has a lot of responsibilities. You have responsibilities too. Is it going to take up your day? No, it won't. Your responsibilities specifically include understanding the records management policy. Was it approved? All good. All right. So we have the records management policy in place along with the retention schedules. We will ultimately be creating a how-to guide on how to use and reference both of those documents. And we'll distribute that however we decide to do that. We anticipated doing that as part of today's training, but time, you know how it goes, lack thereof. Understanding the policies and the records retention schedules, understanding and managing confidential records, things that might be confidentially externally, but might also be confidential to internal uses. Managing certain documents like your duplicates, your transitory records. Again, these are things that you can dispose of at any point that you want to without having the formal approvals to do so, because they are not considered official records. Non-records, same thing. And managing your emails. Whew. My wife, I love her so much. 27,000 emails in her inbox. Me as a records manager, 100. If I go over 100, I start getting antsy. Because I like to manage my emails. Yes, I put them in subfolders and things too. I save them with projects, with my client projects. But I manage the email just as much as that's your responsibility. No one else can do that for you. You know what you're doing. You know your job. So you have to manage the information that's related to it. Electronic records and email. This is what our core thing is. There is a formal destruction process for electronic records. As I said earlier, it doesn't matter whether it's paper, electronic, microfilm, and there is microfilm still in the city, I believe upstairs in community development. Oh, I can go on about that one. Do I recommend it? No. There's a formal process, and that includes, again, destruction of records like duplicates and transitory records, dispose of those at any time, the auto deletion feature that will be implemented as part of email. Now, we didn't clarify, and I'm not sure how we're going to work on this because we're still working with your IT provider. We didn't clarify that that is really intended for your inbox, the automatic deletion. We're not focusing on the subfolders right now. So if it is important enough, move it into subfolders. Ultimately, if we cannot make that change, we want to create records even out of the materials that we put into subfolders. But right now, the intent is to have the 2-year retention just on inbox. Retention periods follow items that relate to a project or a subject that is listed most likely in the retention schedules. And if it's not, then we have to talk to the city clerk's office about that and make sure we have items that are missing from the retention schedules added to them. So anything, an email, for instance, that relates to a subject you are dealing with or a project that you're dealing with that is important enough to save with, will ultimately get the retention period for that associated entry in the retention schedules. Make sense? Kinda? Ish? Got it? Please, ask me.
So to reframe what you're saying, because the question that I was having is, okay, so the email, if it goes into an inbox,
Yeah.
how long is that live? And so what you're saying is that we would remove what we are deemed records into a separate location, and then the retention of that email would be defined by what the nature of the work is.
Correct.
That is being discussed in the email.
Correct. Exactly. Because it can be a supporting document. It could be a strong enough, the content could be strong enough to support that document. That's not the right wording I'm saying. The content could be strong enough that it is essential to that official record if it's leading up to it. And you want to capture that because, again, a decision was made off of that. It would follow the same retention as the rest of the documents associated with that subject or project or entry in the schedules. Okay. I have Laserfiche on here. Laserfiche is technically the official repository for electronic records in the city. Now, we all know it hasn't been rolled out yet. I think Human Resources is in the process of working with Laserfiche and migrating information into it. Ultimately, that will be rolled out. So things like emails, materials that you have on SharePoint that need to be saved in a trustworthy repository, which I'll cover in a bit too, you will put into Laserfiche. Because then you can also assign retention periods to it, and it'll automatically calculate it for you based upon the retention schedules.
Give me 1 second. Looks like we have a hand raised. Go ahead, Thomas.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I just want to really drill down on the email portion, especially for existing emails that we have in regards to automatic destruction or our responsibility to destruct. I think a lot of us have plenty of emails that we reference that go back a long ways that are either links or information that we need. I heard something about subfolders wouldn't pertain to the automatic destruction. Could you just speak a little bit more to some of us have a ton of emails saved in different folders and what's going to happen to all of those?
Yeah, Thomas, thanks for the question. I'm just getting on camera so you can see me, but I am also that email user where I don't actually use subfolders. I'm basically like Bruce's wife in that example. I have a lot of emails and they're not organized by subfolder, by project, by record series. So I'm going to be having to go through, and that's kind of the ask here. We're going to hold a separate training after this. It'll be in a later slide on next steps and what we're expecting. But ultimately, all staff will have to go through their inbox and their emails and be able to remove anything that is a record and save that with that record series. We need to be able to prove if we were to have any litigation that we're destroying records that we should not have destroyed. We need to prove that as a city, we have done our due diligence to make sure that any records that are contained within the email system have been removed and placed in a location where that record is going to exist for the retention of the life cycle of the record, essentially. So the ask right now is to just kind of understand what's a record, what's a non-record, what's transitory, and then we're going to hold another training around really like what exactly we want you to do, how we want you to move emails, whether that's moving that email into SharePoint, whether it's moving it into a subfolder. We're going to provide more guidance on that after the facts, but that's why this isn't going into effect until January 1st, because there's a lot of emails. And so we're going to be constantly we'll be sending out reminders every couple weeks with videos on this training, as well as any, subsequent trainings that take place. So more information is going to come on exactly how we're going to carry that out, or expecting our staff to carry that out. Because for some of us, for me, it's 8 years of emails that I've got to go through, depending on how long you've been an employee. And Thomas, I know you've been here for a long time. That's 8 years of emails to go through also. So more information on that will be coming soon.
So I think the main concern too is will anything be automatically deleted from current subfolders, not the main inbox, but emails that are in current subfolders?
So
Will
it's
anything
not.
be automatically deleted, or is it always imperative for us to filter through it, and at the end of the day, our responsibility as the employee?
Yeah, so more information is going to come on that. We're making sure. Did you want to say something, Sean? Or yeah, here, Sean's going to pipe in on Xantreon side.
Yeah, so we are working out with Xantreon what the technical feasibility. To Bruce's point, the intention is that the inbox itself would be what would be subject to the destruction process, but the complexity of kind of defining and tagging the folders and the emails, we're working on with them on what are the technical limitations, what are the technical opportunities, so that's why we're gonna provide that specific training in the subsequent session.
Correct.
Okay, thank you all.
There we go. Okay, so emails and attachments. You have some different classifications for them. Yes, we are repeating ourselves a little bit. In part to make sure you understand completely what we're talking about when it comes to what is considered an official email or an official record from an email. So classifications, you have that official record. You've decided subjectively that this is worth me keeping as part of the subject or project. You have transitory and reference material. Hey, Bruce, you going to go to that meeting next week? It's super important. Yeah, I'll be there. Great, I'll see you there. Who cares, right? It's informational. It's transitory in nature. It's not something that's directly supporting that subject or project. Reference information too. Hey, here's some stuff that might help you out. Here's an attachment, for instance, that might contain information that allows you to create an official record. So, and then there's personal materials too. Everyone gets personal emails, and non-city related subjects and information, ads, and so on. So those are the classification levels for email. Again, our retention, as we've already drilled into your brains a little bit, the intent is to have 2 years in the inbox. And right now, the subfolders are currently indefinite. We may decide later on that we add maybe a longer retention to it, but that's something that we have to determine later on too.
Just to repeat that question, it's does that send the send folder, is that
Send,
included in
yeah.
the inbox?
Well, that's up to you. Normally I see sent as, yes, it would follow that, or be even shorter. It depends. I like the idea of a 2-year period on that. Can we make that modification too, and also remove emails from the send?
So ultimately, it's all going to be worked out. As far as the Xantreon component with these additional, if there's going to be an additional retention period associated, it's something that ultimately we would decide, whether it's sent, subfolders, general, overall 2 years, and it's whether or not that capability is there. So that more information will come out on the specific specific retention period for subfolders, whether that's sent, inbox, et cetera, but inbox would be 2 years. And it looks like here we've got a question. Can you say more about Teams being 6 months? Did I hear that correctly? Yeah, so the Teams chats, there's Teams channel conversations, and then there's Teams chats. Teams chats are 6 months. And again, I think really the intention there is that there should be no records in your Teams chats. That's really the point, is that we don't want records in there. Hey, can you set up this meeting for this person, this person, this person? See you in 10 minutes. Can you maybe review this? But like, email is where the records are. And it's really trying to change the culture here in the city of what are we using email for? Imagine it's a bunch of physical records on your desk. Some of them can just be recycled immediately. That's a non-record, right? Some of them, hey, this is a document that ultimately I know is going to become a record. It might not be yet, but it will. I'm going to hold off. I'm going to save this. Or this is a record and I need to put this somewhere else. Think about it like that. And with Teams chats, we don't want to be doing really like city business on our Teams chats. Teams channel conversations are different, which is why there's a 2-year retention period for the channel conversations. So the goal is from here on out, that working agreement is that Teams chats is for quick, like texting, I'm on my way, see you in 10, schedule a meeting, etc. Yeah, so the channel conversations are more, they could be project based, they could be a department channel conversation. So those, there's more collaboration that should be going on there. I can go into a channel that's created and I can look through shared documents in SharePoint, whereas the chat is more, I think of the chat as just a one-on-one conversation that's hard to find any documents that you've maybe created or collaborated within.
And that's actually been a big deal in my industry because what we used to consider a communication tool, email, texts, voicemails, chats, now are becoming records in many cases. So it is also up to the city to make a decision on what we consider a communication versus a record. And that's where this comes into play of deleting materials that have no value to us in the city. And anything that we've decided has value, we've created a record out of. So again, as I said earlier, emails, a majority of your emails are transitory in nature. They are conversations and most likely don't need to be produced as part of a public records request. There are I know there are exceptions to that too.
I see another hand raised. I'm just going to let's go through the rest of the slides because some of those questions might get answered through the slides, especially the ones that are coming up. And then after slides are complete, we'll take any other questions.
Sounds good. Let's see. We've talked about these attachments. One thing, any attachments that are attached to an email, I recommend downloading those to whatever the project is or subject that's associated with. That is even more of a record, unless it's purely for reference purposes, than the email is itself. So if you're getting drafts of things, yeah, of course you're going to keep those along with the project or the subject. That final version that might be sent back to you, it's essential to keep that out of Outlook, out of your email system. So official email records, how do we determine that? Like I said, it could be the end of a thread. A decision was made off of that. An important subject was determined in that, and we want to make sure that that is used to support whatever the item is. Attachments, again, download those. I have a decision flow chart that will help you in determining, in general, what can be considered an email in your inboxes and your subfolders. And it's super easy to read. I know I can barely read it on this one, but I will go through this and get a little closer to this thing and take off my glasses. So, is an email a record? First question, is it related to your responsibilities at the city? Yes? All right, we continue on to make determinations whether this is an email. No, it's a non-record. It's something that you can dispose of. You're going to get a copy of this, by the way. Right? Right. Are you the sender or the creator? If you're not the sender, then are you the recipient? Yeah, of course. We'll go down that path in a moment. Let's say you are the sender or the creator. Does it explain, justify, or document an action or a decision? These are all things I've already said, but this is at least a little bit more of a push to give you an idea on how to determine this. If not, no, then it's a non-record, has no value, or it's transitory in nature. If yes, then you want to create a record out of it. Again, you've sent this. This relates to business. This relates to your projects and your work. Create a record out of that document, or out of that email. Let's say you're receiving that email. Do you need to take an action on it? Is it a thread that's still open? Do you need to confer with others and then get back to that person who sent it to you? If you need to take an action, then you move on. Does it explain, justify, or document the action or the decision? Same thing as with if you sent it. If yes, create a record out of it. If no, it can go away. It's a non-record. Does that make sense? I know it's simplistic right now. You might be using this later on just to make that determination. Now, we talked about Laserfiche earlier. There is something called trusted systems. Technically, it's a guideline by the state of California that states that we have to preserve official records or items that we have determined to be a record. We have to preserve that in a trusted system. Now, a trusted system can be Laserfiche. It could be printing it to a PDF or a PDF-A, which is the archival version of a PDF, and retaining that somewhere where it cannot be modified once it's been created. Trustworthy document preservation is a whole presentation in itself. The point is that when we create a record out of an email, we want to make sure that that is preserved somewhere and cannot be modified. That's where PDFs, printing it as a PDF is a good idea, as opposed to just dragging and dropping it into a system. Because you will be able ultimately to drag and drop emails into Laserfiche. Laserfiche is the city's trustworthy electronic document preservation system. It has security measures on it that restrict anyone from deleting, or very, very, very few people from deleting a record or modifying a record that's in the system. Yes, we don't have that rolled out yet. Ultimately, that's where we want all official records. That doesn't mean that you can't use other systems to manage your projects. By no means. You're welcome to, of course. But those official records that, if they are called into court, will have to come from Laserfiche as the repository. The courts will recognize that as an official document that cannot be modified or hasn't been modified. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay. Things that are not trusted. SharePoint. I know. We're putting emails or can put emails into SharePoint to share them as part of that project or subject that we're working on. Technically, it's not a trusted system because things can be moved around, other people can access it, possibly even open and modify a document too, especially if it's in a native format like Word or Excel. So Microsoft called me back in 2013 and said, hey, we'd like to make SharePoint a trusted system. And I looked at it and I said, this is really an administrative nightmare because it wasn't automatically calculating retention. It didn't have all these other components that a records management system should have. So they kind of scrapped that idea. They're trying to bring it back as a document management system, but realistically, it's what it says. It is a sharing system. It's the point that we put documents in so we can share them. Your local drives and desktop, if it's not saved somewhere that the city can manage it, and if it's sitting on a local system, nobody else can access it. So it's not a trustworthy system for official records. And Outlook, again, not intended to be a document management system. In case of a public records request, in case of litigation, that could be pending, current litigation, potential litigation, which the city attorney's office will most likely let you know. Stop all destruction. That includes emails. Do not destroy emails that are relevant to any public records request or litigation. Under no circumstances should you release any information to outside agencies or people or organizations if there is litigation, potential litigation, or other legal action happening on that information. And I was going to say, talk to your city attorney's office.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, when there's a litigation hold and you will get communication from the city attorney's office, that even the transitory emails that normally would not be a record, for example, the, hey, see you in 5 minutes, even those have to be retained when there's litigation. Litigation is more expansive than the Public Records Act.
Right. That's where you get into discovery, which a lot of things can be released as part of a discovery process as opposed to a public records request. Public records request focuses on official records. Discovery focuses on everything, including materials that lead up to that official record.
So yeah, so I just wanted to, we do have the technical feasibility. So what happens on our side from the IT standpoint is that the city attorney's office will say, I need a litigation hold on X person's mailbox. And so then that is being taken care of on the back end. So, I mean, I think we'll continue to help support the training and the understanding of this, but like the expectation, I think, is that you should be aware, but we are also confirming that on the IT side, that if something accidentally gets deleted, that those, that those things, that we have a litigation hold on those things.
Oh, good. So are you creating a separate, what's the word I'm looking for? A copy of that person's inboxes and drives?
Yeah, I mean, so basically that inbox is marked, and
Okay.
so, and then we also have, without getting too much into the technical part, even as it stands, even if you did delete something, it goes into a holding tank, right? So currently we have that holding tank. Anything that is deleted currently sits in that holding tank for 2 years, and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to put this system in place.
Sure, that makes sense. All right, any other questions online here? Think we're good? Okay. So how do we maintain our systems? Basically, again, we want to review all emails in our inbox prior to December 31st of 2026, because starting on the 1st, anything older than 2 years will disappear. So make those decisions, move things into the subfolders for now, capture them as a record, print them to PDF, put them in SharePoint, put them somewhere secure, at least until we get Laserfiche up and running. Review and delete any transitory records, reference documents, personal and non-city subjects, ads, and informational materials too. Just streamline your system. It makes sense. It's going to be so much easier to work with your inbox and email system in general. Next steps. I'll leave this one to Lindsay.
Awesome. So for the next steps, really, I mentioned it earlier, we're going to have a separate training on exactly what we want you to do, showing you how you can do that. So it'll be really clear. That'll be coming soon. Also, we will be asking, as I mentioned earlier in Thomas's question, we're going to be asking staff to review all their inbox and move any of the emails that are considered records as highlighted by Bruce. It's just a matter of where, right? Whether that's going to be a subfolder, SharePoint, eventually Laserfiche as a trusted system. We'll be sending reminders consistently. So probably like every couple of weeks, you might get an email from the city clerk's office reminding you of the fact that we are going to be deleting the emails, showing you or providing access and a link to this video, as well as the next training that we have on how to go through your inbox, and just reminding you consistently, because you're not going to go through all your emails in one sitting. For me, I'm probably going to try to spend an hour a week, once a week, on a Friday, to try to go through as many emails as I can until I can get to a place that's more manageable. So we'll provide information consistently and remind you as much as we can. Again, we're also trying to make sure that we're doing everything on the city side to make sure that records are being moved to where they're supposed to be and not in your inbox. So I'm going to be like a lot of emails coming to you, just reminding you. By 12/31, all of your general inboxes should really have no more records. They should just be emails that are considered non-records. And then starting 1/1/2027 is when we're going to be automatically deleting emails that are in your general inbox that are older than 2 years. So you have next slide, Flicker. Next slide is easy. If you have any questions or concerns relating to process. Now, your records coordinators are going to kind of be your go-to. We're going to be working with your records coordinators. Every department has a records coordinator. So that person is going to kind of be your department's expert. However, you're always welcome to reach out to the city clerk's office at any point in time. We're here, we're available. If you're not sure about a record, you can also just tag that, set that aside in a subfolder of unsure, need to go through, need review, and we'll try to help you determine whether or not that would be a record. And then same with anything legal. If you have any questions around if there should be a hold or you feel like maybe there's litigation or something, you can reach out to the city attorney's office as well as the city clerk's office, just to be sure. And then with anything electronic, it's going to be our office as well. And that's the last slide. The next is questions. So I'm going to take questions from the chat.
Actually, the next slide is me.
Is the next slide you?
I don't
Oh,
care
it's just
about
you.
me.
Yeah.
There we go.
Let's
Yes,
go
questions.
ahead and take any of the questions for the folks that have their hands raised. Let's start with Damien.
Hello, all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My question would be, I think I've asked this before, and I wanted to get clarification. So, for our calendars, is that going to be included in the deletion of the records as well, and included with our inboxes? And are our shared emails included as well?
When you say shared emails,
Yeah.
Like for example, our AP inbox, our business license inbox, those items, will they also be included inside the records retention deletion?
yes. So they're considered emails as well. If it's a distribution email, then that just goes to your personal email and that'll be part of the emails you're reviewing. If it's a shared email, such as end homelessness, that'll have its own retentions applied. As far as the calendars, all the calendar invitations are in your inbox and those will follow the 2-year retention period. I'm not sure about the actual calendar. Like if I was to look back at my calendar from 5 years ago, would that no longer be there? I'm not sure of that answer, but I can get back to you in the upcoming trainings and make sure I have an answer for you on that.
And
Awesome.
that's something we should definitely discuss, because I see calendars as being a little bit more important in the sense of knowing when activities did happen for projects. But we can discuss that separately.
Okay, great.
Any other
And
questions?
then
Oh,
I
sorry.
guess my last question would be, for those situations where folks may have printed out or PDF'd an email to attach it to, let's say, our file system inside of our not our desktop, but our database here. what happens with those? Like, will we be looking at our inbox, like not the inbox specifically, but our, our records, our files, to also delete things that are older than a certain time frame, or fall underneath a specific records retention policy? Is that going to be like a next phase, or is that's just something that's going to be discussed at a another time?
Yeah.
Are you talking about attachments? Is that what you mean?
Not specifically within emails. Yes, attachments or PDFs that I might have inside of my, my C drive or my U drive or something like that. What
so
about those situations?
We're going to cover that in the next training for the most part. That would be kind of the same way that that's a record. So it was an email that became a record and it has to follow that record's retention period, which will be more so covered in the next session, which is going to start at 2:00. So this is mainly just for specifically the emails.
Got it.
In your inbox, in the automatic deletion of those emails.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Non-record emails. Let me just check to see if there's any other questions or any chats. Someone thought that was a good question, which is great. Okay, I've got a couple things here. Is there anything we need to do with the sent folder? As referenced before, we still need to determine exactly that 2-year, if it's going to be a 2-year retention, what we're doing with the subfolders. So that will come out in the next training when we're telling you exactly what to do and where to move them. We'll include that as well, whether that's your sent, any subfolders, but absolutely your general inbox. There's another question. So just to double check, we need to keep financial records for our grants for 3 years from now. Right now, emails are in subfolders or SharePoint. But do we need to start moving them to microfiche? I think you mean Laserfiche. We definitely don't want anything on microfiche.
That wouldn't be a bad idea to move them over because they can be considered a record as part of an audit. So, moving them, either creating a record out of them, moving them to the subfolders for the time being, that's important enough to retain those. Yes. Especially, like I said, for federal grants.
I haven't been given like any real power
I'm not
around
sure.
that stuff to make the
I don't
decision.
know where that's coming from. I don't see where that's coming from. I'm not seeing where that is coming from. Just a reminder, someone's not muted. If you could mute. Okay, so I'm seeing no more questions in the chat, and I'm not seeing any more hands raised.
All right.
Are there any questions in the room? Yeah, Sean. Oh yeah, Sean and Micah.
Yeah, I think that we'll get more into this into the next training, but just having done a lot of technology training, I know that it can be really confusing hearing about all the different systems, what you do where, especially now we have Outlook, we have Teams, we have channels, we have chats, etc. And I think that one of the things we want to kind of make, I think it should be made clear, and that we will, is like, what is the life cycle of like a record, or what is the life cycle of our work? And I think making sure people aren't confused about what a trusted system means. It doesn't mean that you can't like trust doing work in SharePoint. We're going to continue doing the work that we do, but if you think about the life cycle of the work that you do, that ultimately the kind of the end goal is that records end up into the trusted system that's been approved by City Council, which is Laserfiche.
Correct.
Work as we do it continues to happen in SharePoint and Teams, but ultimately when these records that you were discussing today are created, they will all end up in this archive of the trusted system Laserfiche. I just want to make that last clarification because I know it can be really confusing when there's like this system and that system and this system.
Right. And realistically, a trusted copy of a document may be the official record that's created in paper format, or it might be something that you have recreated, scanned to electronic, for instance, that's unmodifiable. So that's really when we're talking about the trusted system. It should be containing materials that are unmodifiable in the current format.
So Bruce, my question is really related, and it has to do about some of the permit,
Yes.
building permits, planning permits, those records of a new system right now. And that was an interesting question because we have an end of life program software. Our backbone's ended.
Yeah.
We're transitioning to a new one, but then what do I do with the records contained in the old one? They do need to be retained, but it's like that's a larger scale, and that really ties into Sean's, trusted systems or unmodified, but there's a lot of capture points on projects, and these are official records.
Right. I know we're going to be talking about that in the future too, based upon that another step of the project. But uh, this is where it can get a little crazy too, because if you're attaching documents to a process management system like you are, it is like SharePoint in a way. It's a process management system. It's not intended to be a records management repository because you can't assign retention periods to it. You can't prove that it's the official record, etc. Yes, we know we've created a PDF out of this and we're attaching it to a project. That's fine. Ultimately, we want to talk with Laserfiche when that's rolled out and have API links between the two. They've got some pre-designed links that the moment you stick it in one place, it automatically routes it over to Laserfiche too. So you're not duplicating your own efforts, but the system is doing it for you.
And just also, Micah, your team's looped us in the city clerk's office around that new system and old records too. So I think the majority of that is going to get captured again in the next 2 o'clock training on records management and your records coordinators. And that's how we got included in that conversation. So I just want to try to focus it back on email just because I think the amount of folks this is touching is citywide. That's why this is a mandatory training because everyone has email, where not everyone has to go to the 2 o'clock training because they might not touch records consistently over time. So just want to make sure that we're focused 100% on emails at this time, but that question will be answered at 2.
And we could talk after this too.
Bruce will talk to you forever about records management.
Guilty.
Okay, so I don't see any more questions. Thank you all for coming. We're available to answer any questions too in the future. So if, as you start to go through your inboxes once we train, we're happy to, go through any of the emails that you have and assist you with making sure that they are in fact records or what to do with them if they're not.
And you can also contact me. You can contact me if you want, and copy Lindsay on any communications regarding this, and I'm happy to help. Or just send both of us an email at the same time.
And also on our employee website. So there's I saw a chat from Damien. Thank you. I meant to include this. On our employee website, if you search in records management or go to our city clerk page, there's guides and there's specific guides for records management and day-to-day use where you'll be able to find our retention schedule, our records management policy, our records coordinators will be on there so you know exactly who you should be reaching. This training will be available. I'll also be sending emails with all of that information and links to everywhere that you will be able to get what you need. So thank you all so much, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you for your time.